In today's video, I wanted to talk about a particularly beautiful green plant for those of you with larger aquariums or possibly taller aquariums. And this is going to be everything you should know about the Uruguayensis sword, or Echinodorus uruguayensis. So what's going on, guys? Justin from HOPlants.com here today, and today we're actually going to be talking about my favorite sword plant that's green, and that's going to be the Uruguayensis sword. Now this sword is just by far one of the most beautiful swords I've ever seen, and I think it fits in a lot of big or tall aquariums. This is it right here, sitting in this little specimen container here. Now it's quite big. This container is only about 12 inches tall, maybe a little less, and this sword is probably closer to 20 inches tall, so it's very much hanging over there in this container, but I figured this was an easy way to show you kind of what it looks like. We're also going to get some B-roll down in one of the aquariums where one of these sits currently. But this is one of my favorite swords because of its just truly bushy and beautiful nature. Now, let's talk about what this sword is, where it comes from, when it was originally discovered, and kind of the requirements for it. So, from what I can find, originally this plant was described in 1903, and it hails from the southern Brazil or Uruguay area. Also in Chile, you can find this plant as well. It is found in fast-moving streams, and that's kind of why I think the leaves are so long, because when you actually look at this thing underwater and its leaves all spread out, they're very elongated, where most swords are more of a kind of oval shape versus a very elongated oval shape. So this is a more like, almost like fingers versus like just a regular leaf shape. So it's very, very pretty when you have a big mass of it and it just has this giant leaf structure that spreads out. So that's why I find it particularly really cool. It also gets really long, where most swords, they'll either just get tall and have fat leaves, or they'll stay shorter and have fat leaves. None of them really have very elongated leaves, except Red Reuben kind of has it, but this one particularly has it more so than the others. So the Uruguay sword is also not a very finicky plant. I have to say that we have this particular plant was in a tank covered in duckweed. So just imagine all the light completely being blocked pretty much, and just getting kind of ambient light and very low light. And it's been growing quite well. It has probably 20 leaves or so. 15 of them are all brand new leaves. Within the last couple months, we've probably had this guy, I would say maybe 2 months or so, and he's been putting off tons of leaves. As you can see there's just tons of them in there. And they grow really quickly. I have to say, they take a little bit to get going, but once they get going, they just start growing like many other swords do. They're heavy root feeders as well, so keeping good substrate or root tabs, which we sell on the website, or vital tabs, with these plants, it would be ideal. Now, with that said, bright light will give you better results with this plant, and it's actually a polymorphic plant. What that means is it has the ability for its leaves to change shape and size and coloration based on your lighting. So in some cases, and it's not with every single plant, so like if you take this plant and you put it under different lighting, it may not change at all, but some variations of this plant we will actually change, and there's just different cultivars. Sometimes we get them in and they have red tips, sometimes we get them in and they're just green, so it really depends on the season, where we're getting them from and whatnot. So it can change, but they are very pretty in that aspect where they have the ability to change color sometimes. It is a good plant for both cold and warmer water, because it can range anywhere between, say, around 65 to about 78. I've had this maybe pushing 80, but I wouldn't go past that. They typically do like on the cooler side. So if you have like a discus tank that's running 82 or higher, I wouldn't suggest this plant. You don't need CO2 for it, but if you do, it will definitely help it grow faster. It may just grow a little bit on a slower side without CO2, and that's completely fine. With swords, you kind of don't want them growing too fast, because then they get unruly. So you kind of want them to just grow at their normal pace without trying to speed it up too much. This plant has also been known by many different names in the hobby. Obviously, since 1903, it was discovered. It's probably been cycled through many, many times, and there's been other iterations of it. It's been also called the Osiris, the Africanus, the Hormani, the Veroniki, and the Virdis. So there's many different forms or names for this plant, and it's all kind of the same plant in general. But it is the Uruguayensis sword as it is known in 2019. So like many plants, you can propagate this plant. There's really two methods to doing so, and one is, with many other sword plants, this will actually produce a vertical stave, which will typically be like the flower stalk of a plant. In this case, underwater or above water, sometimes it will actually produce baby plants from those nodes that grow on the state that comes out vertically. You will also get flowers once it breaches the water surface, so you'll actually get flowers if you really wanted to and allow it to do that. And what I typically recommend for people to do with those stades is let it grow until it kind of stops growing, or at least until you have a couple babies, maybe 3 or 4. And then if you want, cut it off, take the babies out, as long as they have like 3 to 4 leaves each, and then you can plant them and you'll have even more. This will also produce kind of side shoots or runners along the side of its main plant. So what you're gonna have to do if you really want to propagate it out is wait for it to grow for a couple months and then take a look, and you may see like leaves that are popping out that don't necessarily look like they fit with the rest of the plant. And what you'll do is you'll actually have to probably either uproot the plant or go in with scissors and trim around the roots to remove that particular plant that you're trying to get out. And then you can move it somewhere else in the tank. Now you could leave them attached, it's not going to affect the plant in any way, but if you want to have more of them, spread them out between tanks, or just maybe have a cascade of these in your aquarium, that's one way to do it. And trimming this plant, you should never just clean cut across the top of the leaves. That would actually damage the leaves, and it actually renders them almost useless because then they start to die back. So what you actually want to do is you want to go down to the base of the plant where the roots and the center mass is for the rosette, which is what the root and that structure is called. And you want to actually cut the leaves down as close as you can without uprooting the plant. Like many other sword plants, they don't like being moved around a whole lot, so if you can trim it up without having to remove the plant from where it is, that'd be your best bet. Overall, a very easy plant to grow. I think everybody should try this plant, the Uruguayensis swords. It just has these beautiful long green leaves that it looks almost like a vowel, but it's not, and that's why it's cool, because it's not a vowel and it's really something different. Anyway guys, if you want to pick up this plant, you can head on over to our website, h2oplants.com, and you can pick them up there. We do have them available for sale. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, especially if you learned something new maybe about this plant. If you want me to cover something else in this way, whether it be a plant, substrate, lights, I have a bunch of ideas for trying to go in depth with things. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you want me to cover on the next episode. If you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so by clicking the round button. If you want to check out our top 5 tips for floating aquarium plants, you can click right there. If you want to check out our biggest aquarium mistake that we think people make, you can click right there. And I'll see you guys next time.